What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another meta builds update. And basically today we're just gonna be going over the meta items, the items that you should be thinking about, or just flat up copying and pasting, because there are like hunters and mages are pretty copy and paste outside of like a couple items, or other items you should be paying attention to more, like your warriors, your guardians, and your assassins, who go more of a more broad range of items that you can interchange and go into depending on certain team comps. And yeah, there's been a decent amount of changes from 11.3, from 11.2, and some of the bonus balances that I thought it would be good to make a meta update, as some of the items and builds that I was talked about in my season 11, although most of them do apply, some of the items have either gone out or some items come back in. Wink wink, Talisman of Energy is one of those items that have come back in. So I decided today that we're going to be talking about some of these builds. It's going to be a little bit of a quicker one, hopefully, as there are a couple classes here that didn't really get a lot of changes, but I'll make sure to add some more information to counter that, I guess, because I can't just say go look at my old video that has the build there, whatever. We're going to go over every single class for those people who are new here as well. But again, if you're new here, we do these meta updates whenever significant changes happen. It seems to happen maybe once or twice every 3 to 4 months from each individual video. And instead of doing, even though I'm going to be doing this in the future where we go over every single god in their build, it'd be a lot easier just to go over, the meta builds currently. So with that in mind, also, if you see me looking down, I got me notes here. Just want to make sure I don't forget anything, or note down certain things, make sure I didn't gloss over it. But yeah, let's see. Actually, I'm curious, does this sound on? It is not. I guess we can go here. All right. Actually, I am going to turn this off. Sorry, I just wasted some time there. Whatever. We're actually going to start off here with the warriors. I'm going to go a little bit more of the complex builds, so your warriors, your guardians, and your assassins, and then we'll go off with the mages and hunters. So if you want to skip ahead, there should be timestamps in the description if you just want to skip ahead and get or you want to skip to the part where you're more interested in, or shit like that. So we're gonna go off with the AA warriors today, or first off. So we're actually gonna put this here. I did this last time and I actually like this a lot, just so you can kind of see where we're at, because we're gonna be going over warriors right now, but there's a difference between AA warriors and ability-based warriors, and we're personally, first off, going to go with the AA warriors. So, your AA warriors, like your Bellona, Amma, Vamana, Osiris, Gilgamesh, and Erlang Shen. That's basically all your AA warriors. There are certain builds that I don't want to do Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh can kind of go both. Let's do Bellona. What am I looking for? God Builder. Okay. We're gonna clear that. But nothing's really changed for your AA warriors, not drastically enough. Like I said, item like Talisman is really good, or has been popped up in the meta. So if you know about the other build, if you already knew about the other build for your AA warriors, there's nothing really as much changed. I'm gonna be going, but because nothing's really much changed, I'm gonna go over certain different items for each individual god. I'm not going to go over a full build, but I'm going to go over certain items you want to pay attention to over other items depending on which god you are. So with Bellona, we can just do the regular build. Bellona doesn't really have too much to offer in terms of a variety of items, except maybe a Pridwin, but that's not really that interesting compared to other items. But again, we're just going to go into Acts of Animosity. That's pretty cookie cutter stuff for her. Now there are a couple other items here that I do want to mention. So you get your Berserkers. Another item that I like to see is Phalanx. Phalanx is still very good. It's gotten nerfed recently, but I still think it's very good. You have Shoguns. These are not in order yet. I'll put these in order. You have Executioner still, even though in Venom Executioner did get nerfed. The item's still busted. I mean, the fact that you didn't have to stack up, very similar to how Xyz's passive works. Now it stacks up to 4 times with its passive instead of just all at once. It's still very good. Then you have Kins, and then like I said earlier, you have Talisman. Then you have Spirit Robe. So basically the same items you want to pay attention to. Pridwin. Usually you want to go Reverent Pridwin. And then Mantle of Discord. Oops. Mantle of Discord. And that's basically the items you should be paying attention to as an AA warrior. But with Bologna, so one thing with Bologna, or got like the regular build, a lot of this is the build that I usually like to go. I like to go Acts of Animosity into Berserkers, Shoguns, and Venom XC, and then either go Spirit Robe or Mantle of Discord, depending on their team comp. If their team comp is CC heavy, then I like to go Mantle of Discord to chase them down, or maybe to even get away. So either or. If not, then you can go Spirit Robe because they're both very good. They're basically the same item, actually, if you think about it. Both give you 10% cooldown protections and a passive based on your CC, or getting CC'd. One is just, stunning, whereas the other one's giving you more tank stats with mitigations. And then lastly, you go into Kins, and that's basically your cookie cutter build right here. Nothing's really much changed. One thing that I do like to mention a lot, though, is Phalanx. In Conquest is still a very good build. And in Joust as well. We're in a meta where usually it's a hunter, a warrior, and a guardian. And so with that specific team comp, you can also build Phalanx, because if you're going up against an a warrior and a hunter, Phalanx is perfectly placed here. And specifically because they have 2 physical gods, you can actually stack both of these and it'll come in, more impactful than going a Shoguns. Because the only damage you're going to be getting from is a guardian, and seeing as you're going to be tanky, they're not going to do as much damage compared to like a mage, for example. So you could double up on your FizzD, specifically into those team comps, I think, and then you can either from here go to Shoguns and then XE Kins, just to because Shoguns is so good, it gives you what 40% attack speed now with its passive and its original stats. And really you can just mix and match. If you don't want X and you want to be a little bit tankier and have a little bit more cooldown, you could go Pridwin here for her. Obviously you go Pridwin then Kins, and this would be a very good build against that team. And then and specifically if you don't want Shoguns and you want to get Talisman of Energy instead, you can go Talisman of Energy after your Phalanx Berserkers. You can go XC Kins, or you could go even Mantle of Discord Kins. But really just depends on your team comp again. Or the team that you go up against and your team comp, because Talisman Energy might be good, but you can also put Talisman Energy on your Guardian, and vice versa. You can actually interchange these two, because if you don't know, Talisman of Energy is super good right now. It's very cheap, 2150 gold. It gives you upwards of 12% movement speed and attack speed and 60 MP5. So it's like a very, very good team item for you and your team, because you're always going to be close to each other. Cheap, gives you a decent amount of protections and health, which stacks really well with Acts of Animosity. So in your cookie cutter build that I said earlier, you could go Berserkers, like I said, Shoguns. But if you wanted to go Talisman of Energy, and you can get your Guardian to go Shoguns, or vice versa, it doesn't really matter. But having these 2 items specifically in a team comp where you have a hunter as well is very beneficial, because you do get attack speed passive with Shoguns, and you get attack speed passive with Talisman. So basically you're giving 42% attack speed buff to your you and your warrior. So building both of these items on your Guardian and your warrior is going to be very good. But yeah, that's basically it. Nothing's much changed here for this cookie cutter build. I did not really mean to do that, but you can go back and screenshot it. And then we can go on to a couple others here. Let me make sure that I'm going, let's see. Oh, okay, yeah, Osiris. Osiris, if you're not picking him up and he's not banned, you're trolling. But Osiris is obviously so fucking busted right now. You can go the original build that I said earlier with your Berserkers and everything. So I'm not going to reiterate that build. But I'm just going to go over another type of build with Osiris that I like with him. Sundering Axe. You can kind of go both with him. You can kind of go your attack speed, or you can go your ability base, which we're doing right here. We can just go, I like Spirit Robe more on Osiris. And then what I like to do with him too is you can actually go hybrid with him, so you can go XE Kins if you would like. And obviously you have your other items like Berserkers, Phalanx. You could even go Pridwin. One thing I didn't note about Pridwin that I want to note now is that you want to be careful with how you build Pridwin, because if you're going up against a hunter and they have an Venom Xe with its passive giving you shield or shield reduction, it can actually be kind of bad. You ult in and your hunter just autos you and you reduces your shield just by autoing you, instead of, you know, just doing damage and having that shield as like extra health. So you do want to be careful about Pridwin. If they have Xe or they have like horrific or something, I wouldn't go reverent and instead just go into like a spirit robe or a mantle of discord, because those will give you more value out of that, as opposed to just the Pridwin. Also, it gives you, it's more tank stats too with mantle or spirit robe. But this specific build that I like to go Glad Shield Onis into Xe, spirit robe, and Kins. You get best of both worlds. You can auto chain with Osiris very well with your attack speed with Xe and Kins, and then also because Osiris can go both because of his abilities of his 1 and his 2 and his ult, actually you can poke really well with him, and you can literally win games by just poking, because they have to constantly reset, which can allow you to whittle down their Phoenix, whittle down their tower, whittle down their Titan, and just win based off of that, especially if you have Sundering with this build, which is actually disgusting. If you don't want to go this, you can honestly you can just like mix it up with him. So you could go even Acts of Animosity here. I'm not going to put it here because it's Sundering, but you get the point. You could go into like a Berserker's Onis. You could go into, you know, if they're that they have a lot of auto tech, you can go Phalanx Onis, although I really like Glad on Osiris. You could go Glad Shoguns. I mean, there's so many options here, but I did want to highlight this build as a particular one. So that's his build. Vamana is basically the same. The only thing is the only difference is that let's just do a regular build here, because I mean we kind of get the gist of the AA warriors. One thing I will do though is that I like hastened over your Xe. You can still go Xe because he still has movement speed buff after you like auto in his ult and stuff like that, so it's not necessary, but it makes things so much easier, especially if you just want to mow them down as a Vamana does. You can go like a mantle, which can allow you to get, you can stun them and you can get on them quicker, or spirit robe if you would like, and then you can go Kins here, and I actually like this build a lot. So you would go Acts of Animosity, Berserkers, Shoguns, obviously still have like your Phalanx and everything like that, but I like hastened, mantle or spirit robe, and then going into Kins. Basically just switching out your hasten for your Xe, but again, you don't have to do that. You can still build Xe here. You can still build Xe if you would. Oops, you can still build Xe here if you'd like, and that's basically his build here. And then one last one that I want to go over, I believe that's basically all of them. Gilgamesh, you can kind of go either or. Is basically the same exact thing. You would just go into you either go Berserkers or Shoguns or Talisman or something if you know are going up against mages or not mages, magical characters. What is it called? Hammer, rune breaking hammer. I like rune breaking hammer on Erlang and even on a god like Gilgamesh, because you have a lot of CC to proc this. You have your 2 and your ult. You used to have your 3, but not anymore. And so you can get a lot of value out of rune breaking. You pin them or you ult them and you do so much damage with Acts of Animosity, stuff like that. And then after that, I mean, you can kind of just build the same old. The only thing I will say is that you will be squishier if you do go Xe Kins, which can do a lot of damage, and you're still somewhat tanky, but it would probably take the position of Executioner, and you want to keep that Kins because Kins is so good on these gods. So instead, I'd probably put either a Spirit Robe again or a Mantle, or you can double up again. Like I said, you can still go your Phalanx if you don't want your magical defense. You can go Talisman, still super good. And yeah, there's a lot of things you can do. So specifically with Erlang, what I like to do is I like to go Acts of Animosity, Berserkers, Rune Breaking, Shoguns, or Talisman. We'll go Talisman here. And then in a very cookie cutter type build, then I'd go into Spirit Robe and Kins, and this would be a very, very good build for him. You could even delay your rune breaking if you would like, and go into Talisman first. But that's basically the Erlong build for that. And yeah, that's basically it for the AA warriors. We're going to go ahead and go into the ability-based ones, and then we'll move on from there. All right, and then we have our ability-based warriors, as you can see right here. We're not specifically going over Cucullin. This is just a proxy. So this is how I'm gonna format it. I'm gonna basically go over a general build right here that you can kind of build on like almost every ability-based warrior. And it should be really good outside of like a couple, because you know certain items in this specific build may not work like 100% carried over to another guy. For example, Horus. You know, Pridwin works on like most warriors, but Pridwin doesn't work on Horus. But we'll go into 3 different other builds that kind of encapsulate all of the other type of warriors and a couple of the other items that you want to go over. Again, I'll be making a video in the future going over every single warrior for season 11. I'm sorry, every single god for season 11, how to build them. But this is just a meta update. So we're just gonna be going over some interesting items that have been changed. So warriors as well, the ability-based warriors haven't much changed either. Outside of a couple items, like I said earlier, with Talisman. Talisman does work really well on warriors. It can work on your guardians as well. And you can kind of interchange Shoguns with Talisman between the guardian and the warrior. However, I like the Talisman more on your warrior. Ability-based warrior, that is. Your AA warrior, I do like Shoguns a little bit more. And that's just because of the passive always proccing. And I think that Talisman would be much better on your guardians in that specific instance. But on your ability base, I do like Talisman a little bit more than on the guardian, and the guardian can pick up Shoguns, for example, if you're building the if you're doing the meta team comp, which I assume you should be doing. But here we go. So this is this build specifically is going to be just a general build. So keep that in mind. We're going to go stack a couple items down here below to see or to show you some other items that you could go. Like I said, Talisman, very good. Glad shield on most of your warriors can be good. You know, your gods like Tyr, obviously King Arthur, don't play him in Joust though. Shiva, you know, all of the warriors. Mulan, very good on him. Chalk, stuff like that. So that's why I picked that one there. Gives you cooldown and everything. And this is the item that I was talking about. Pridwin doesn't work on Horus. So like in this specific slot, we'll go over it, what you would want to build instead for a general build. But Pridwin works on majority of your warriors. So Pridwin is very good. Again, be careful of this item if you are going up against a hunter with an Envenom Xe or Horrific, because that can get countered. And seeing as Pridwin's passive is basically what you want to build it for, not really its protections. Cooldown is also a specific factor in Pridwin and why you want to build it. Just be careful, it doesn't give a lot of protections. So you could interchange this with another item as well, but this is just a general build. And then I actually like to go Spirit Robe. Spirit Robe is all around, gives you everything you want. I mean, this build gives you so many stats. Cooldown, HP 5, health, damage, with its passive on Glad. I mean, Talisman gives you MP 5, movement speed, attack speed, protection, its health. Pridwin gives you a shield, cooldown, prots. This one gives you mitigations, cooldown, CCR, more protection. So, I mean, this build kind of encapsulates everything, which is why I like it. And then Stone of Binding here. I do like Stone of Binding. Not like a ton of ways to proc Stone of Binding. For example, Cucullin can proc it on his ult, his 1, his 3, in his beast form, in his 1 and his 3, and his ult. In his regular form, it can only be procced by his ult. But there's still like a decent amount that you can use it with Stone of Binding. And if not, if you don't like Stone of Binding, Arjudes is very good as a substitute for this. These items both scale later into the game with their changes a little while ago, where it scales better the later you build it. So you want to make sure you build these semi-late. 5th or 6th item is probably the best slot. Maybe like your 4th item here, but generally you want your 5th, 6th. This would be like your general build here. So you can screenshot this, whatever. But we're gonna go into some more items here. So I have a lot here because there's a lot of things. Like I said, warriors can build a lot of shit. So we always got to talk about Gauntlet. One of the things that I said earlier, with the changes to this season, making it to where double tank is back, I don't like Gauntlet as much on warriors because I feel like it's definitely a good item, but it also delays a lot of your items. They're very good items right now that you can honestly just build on your guardian, like Gauntlet, Thieves, Prophetic. So a lot of times I like to skip Gauntlet. However, Gauntlet is still very good. I do like Gauntlet, and if you want to put this in your build to be even more tanky, you can. But then again, you're also sacrificing one of these items that gives so many stats, like bloated stats, for just a Gauntlet of Thieves, which is still very good. But Gauntlet of Thieves always there for that. Breastplate of Valor is also, I think, very good as well. Not like the best item in the world, but allows you to go into its glyphs. Glyphs are always good. You go into Vigilance, which is a pretty niche passive, but can be good against this specific meta with your AA warrior and your hunter. And you can use this to, you know, counter them. If you really need to, you ult, and then you can use Breastplate of Vigilance, or you can go Breastplate of Determination and get you like a pseudo Gauntlet of Thebes every time you get stacks. But specifically with it, it gives you protections, these amount of protections, mana, MP5, and cooldown. And specifically with this item, you would interchange your Pridwin, as Pridwin's basically like a Breastplate of Valor. But because it has a shield and shields can be countered a lot easier this season, Breastplate of Valor and then going up into a different type of glyph would probably be your go-to instead of your Reverent Pridwin. And you can honestly stack it with Glad Shield, because like I said, if you you're really only using Breastplate against, you know, I mean, you're gonna be going up against physical gods like your AA warriors and your hunters, so you can double up on your FISD, and you can also even, like I said, go into Determination, give you even more protections of both, or you can go into your Vigilance, and I mean, it counters your AA gods against the AA gods. So there's that. Can't forget about Void Shield. Void Shield is super fucking good, obviously, specifically with warriors, with its passive giving you within 55 units, reducing their protections by 10% is super good. Allows you to do more damage. Warriors are based on your raw damage, not really a lot of scaling, just based off their raw damage. So you build this on like a Kukulkan, I mean, you do so much damage. And if you have a hunter on your team, you're also allowing him to do more damage. And then obviously the counterpart of that is Demaru, which is very good as well. If you are a warrior and you have a mage and a guardian, for example, you could be more team oriented and build a Demaru if your guardian hasn't already, which they should probably be doing. But you know, you can always do Demaru as well for your team. I wouldn't really buy this unless you have a mage and a guardian to be more of a team player. Otherwise, I would just, you know, probably build more selfishly. So there's Demaru, and then obviously I almost forgot about Mantle. Mantle of Discord instead of Spirit Robe, you kind of already know why. Archduke's Fury, and then Wingblade. Wingblade has been, I've been liking Wingblade a lot. It's super cheap, super cheap. You build this against slows, as when you get hit by a slow, you actually gain in movement speed. And on top of that, it gives you movement speed already. So if you stack this with like a Talisman of Energy, it's actually kind of, you're just zoomy. You're just so fast. Doesn't have the greatest stats, like 20% magical protections is dog shit. It gives you a little bit of health and crowd control reduction, which whatever. But basically it's a passive. It's similar to your anti-crit items like Spectral, anti-heal like Pestilence and Contagion, which you should be building. If you haven't already known about this, you should go check my other videos, because those items should be in here as well. But you guys should already know this, or if you're new or whatever, go back to my other videos, my specific videos on how to build warriors and guardians, or even some of my other meta update videos. They'll go over Spectral armor that gives you anti-crit, anti-heal for Pestilence, Contagion, Midgard for your AA gods, whether that's your warriors or your hunters. So yeah, so Wingblade falls under that category as well, as it's passive. That's basically why you're buying this item, because it's cheap and it's passive. So Wingblade is another option here. And then last but not least, I've been seeing Jotuns a lot more, and specifically Jotun's Vigor. You don't like, Cunning isn't really good except out of like a couple gods who can get a lot of cooldown out of them. But Jotuns is very good. You can usually buy this early. You either buy this early in the game or late in the game. And specifically why you buy Jotuns is because of the cooldown. I mean, it gives you, like, again, bloated stats as well, very similar to this build up here. You either buy this like your second item or like your last item, and your last item being just for the cooldown. Let's say you have a build that has like no cooldown or anything, but you also don't want to be full tank and you want like a little bit of damage instead. You could go Jotun's Vigor instead. So I've also been seeing build Sundering a Gauntlet into Jotuns. I've seen that build a decent amount of times. That one's okay. I do like that one because, I mean, you're getting protections and you're getting your, you know, your bloated stats with like cooldown, everything else, pen, whatever. But let's say you have like a very tanky build. You could go into Sundering Axe, let's say Talisman, and you want Void Shield or something like that. Spirit Robe. Well, now you only have like 10% cooldown. You don't have a lot here. Let's say you have like you need to buy like Pestilence or something for this slot or whatever, or Contagion or something that doesn't have like, you need to buy it but doesn't have like the stats that you would like. Then you can honestly just go into a Jotun. This Jotun gives you cooldown and it gives you your damage, and it's always good to go into for that as well, because if you are full tank, which you can do, you just don't feel as good. You don't feel like you can do as much, and so that's why you would buy Jotuns either in the beginning or, you know, later. But yeah, this is your general build, I think, for your warriors. We're going to go into you can screenshot this or whatever. We're going to go into there's 3 other builds that I want to go over. I think maybe 2 or 3, where there's specific items that I want to go over that would be a little bit different. For example, like Herc, Guan Yu, stuff like that, that wouldn't be as good, but we're going to go ahead and do that right now. All right, so first up we have Shiva, and Shiva, there's only really 2 guys that can kind of do this build reliably, or this like formatted build reliably. Obviously there's other items that I already talked about before that you could still put in this build and be a lot better, but I wanted to like shed a light on this very quickly. I already preset this and everything. Shiva and Horus are the gods that are like pseudo guardians. Basically they have very reliable CC, Horus with his 1 and his 2, and then Shiva with his 1 and his 2. He has, and obviously is like his ults, you know, stuff like that. Very, very team oriented versus other ability based gods like Kukulkan, who is kind of just like a bruiser, damage dealing god. But Shiva, you know, can kind of be built like a guardian and can be played like that as well. And obviously this is a proxy for Shiva. This build is also a proxy for Horus as well, because Horus can build something very similar to this and be very good as well, generally speaking. But you know, Sundering Axe, let's go into the build. Sundering Axe, you have Shiva for Axe. I mean, you build Axe on like all warriors. Gauntlet of Thebes, because he's basically like a guardian. You don't really want to build Prophetic, you can, but it's gonna be hard to stack. Gauntlet is very good on him for the guardian-esque that he plays. Glad, very good as well, because he does a fuck ton of damage as well. With his consistent CC in his 2 and his 1, and the CC not being like, you know, like a tier 1, a tier fearless where he throws him, and although it procs like Runeforge, you're kind of throwing him out of the circle, whereas like Shiva and Horus, you know, you CC them and they're in very close spots to where the passive of Flameforge or Runebreaking Hammer would be substantial and important. So I like to go Flameforge Hammer on Shiva, and I actually like to go Runebreaking on Horus. I like just Flameforge because Shiva's with his 1, and then Runebreaking because Horus does so much damage by himself anyways, it just makes it even better. Spirit Robe as well for the cooldown. You don't have a lot of cooldown in this build, so you can build other things. I don't like Pridwin, but you know, Breastplate would be kind of good on this as well. But this kind of just gives you even more stats, like I said earlier, with Spirit Robe, or you could go Mantle. And then Stone of Binding. I mean, Stone of Binding, very good on him. You're always proccing on the Stone of Binding's passive, and you're just doing more damage just all the time anyways. So with this build, you are very tanky. Can we? Not that, yeah. You're very tanky. I mean, you're not the tankiest you could be, but you're pretty tanky. Let me close that. I'm actually kind of lagging here. Jesus. Okay, yeah, you're very tanky with this build, and you're also doing a lot of damage as well. So this is like a very cookie cutter, like, you know, build for your pseudo tanks, pseudo guardians. You also have Heartseeker, Manicore, Spikes because they proc really well, and then Talisman if you would like, instead of, you know, Spirit Robe, for example, if you want to get Spirit Robe, or if you want to get Talisman instead of Spirit Robe. I mean, you can change up this build decently. You can also go Flame Forge first if you like to, after Gauntlet, go into a Glad, or you could go into a Talisman if you really want that magical defense, although in this meta you don't really need to. Glad, Spirit Robe into Stone of Binding, you know, there's a lot of options here, but this is just like a general build and a couple other items that I like to go. Manicore's is a little bit more selfish, but I still think it's very good on him. And then we're going to go on to another build. So this is the build for your Shiva, your Horus type-esque warriors. All right, and then we're on to a god like Guan Yu. He has a lot of healing and has prot shred specifically, which is one of the builds that I like to go into with him. So we can just go ahead and click these. So Sundering Axe, obviously. Breastplate of Regrowth is really good on him. And that's just because, I mean, it gives you bloated stats, and then obviously if you heal, you'll get movement, speed, power, and everything else. So that's basically all it gives. It's not anything else. But yeah, you do proc this a decent amount. And so Breastplate of Regrowth, although it's sort of like a selfish-ish item, it is very good on him because he constantly procs his healing, which will allow him to do so much. And Guan Yu is kind of a proxy for similar gods like Herc and Chalk, and, you know, so gods like that can heal decently well. You can buy Breastplate of Regrowth and still be very good. You can buy Breastplate of Regrowth on fucking Horus and it's still very good. But yeah, that's basically why you build that on him. You don't need to if you want to be more team oriented. And then obviously Talisman, like I said, Talisman is super good on your ability based warriors, and I think this is obvious pickup here as well. And then we have Mystical Mail. In a physically dominant meta with your obviously your AA warriors and hunters, like I said, Mystical Mail not only helps you with that, but its passive is what you really want to build it for. Because if you don't know, Mystical Mail interacts with shred items. So Mystical Mail can actually work with, you know, Void Shield or Damaru, for example. I'm sorry, not Void Shield, because this is because Mystical deals magical damage. So it interacts with Damaru really well, which can be very good on a god like Service, which we'll go into later. But Mystical Mail with its Prot Shred can actually do that. Mystical Mail, or I'm sorry, with its Prot Shred in his 3, you can build Mystical Mail and it does it's actually kind of tech. You can actually do a decent amount of damage, a lot of damage with it. So it's actually good to build this item. And I like it on Guan Yu specifically. You can still build on other guys that can like stick to you, like a Herc. Oh my god, it's lacking again. Hold on, I'm gonna take my face out. For the builds that I have to take my face out of, you'll know why. Spirit Robe, very good, like I said, bloated stats and shit like that. Stone of Binding, obviously, not obviously actually. Stone of Binding actually works on slows, I believe. So you can go Stone of Binding for that. So you could go it on Guan Yu, although I don't think it's the greatest. So you can go like Arc Druids, for example, and that's really good. You usually weave in autos as Guan Yu. So Arc Druids would be very good as well. But you know, like Herc, for example, Herc would be very good with Stone of Binding with his 2 and his 1. Chalk would be very good with Stone of Binding because of his slow. You can also go Arc Druid's Fury because you're always, like with Herc and everything, you're always like weaving in autos with Arc Druids, so that's very good as well. Oh shit, oh my god, I almost died. Other items that I'd like to go into is CAD Club. That's also like an honorable mention that I want to talk about, because CAD Club gives you bloated stats and also heals a lot. CAD Club is very good on a god like Neja as well. You can build this on Herc or Herc or Chalk, and it would still be very good, although I don't think it's like necessary every time. Glad Shield, obviously very good on all those gods as well. I don't think they have like the greatest, or Chalk has really good with Glad Shield, so you could always go Glad Shield instead of like Mystical Mail here, although Mystical Mail is very good on Chalk as well with the slows. And then obviously if you want like to be more you know, if you don't want Breastplate of Regrowth, you want Breastplate of Valor for the cooldown, you can do that as well. But yeah, that's basically it for your healing type warriors, like Chalk and Guan Yu and Herc, if you would, if you could, you know, say that all those are the healing ones. But yeah, that's basically it for all the warriors. I just want to go over general ideas with basically with like Talisman and like Mystical Mail. I haven't talked about Mystical Mail because it is kind of an underrated item right now. Yeah, but that is going to be your AA warriors and your ability based warriors. We're going to go into Guardians next. All right, now we have our Guardians. Instead of going over like specific Guardians like I did with Warriors, I'm just gonna make a general build here. I'm gonna add in specific items that can work on different gods. So I'm on Cabrakan, but that doesn't necessarily mean this build is for Cabrakan. Just a Guardian build in general. So there's gonna be a lot of items here. But first with Guardians, Guardians have changed a little bit, but not a lot. Like I said, the Talisman and Shoguns are going to be a little bit more vital because the meta is still kind of there. It's still there. You still have your double tank meta, whether it's your AA warrior or you're just regular ability based warrior. It's just better. But I want to go over a couple items that I've been seeing differently. So there's Conduit Gem, which actually is super tech on your gods that want to get more early pressure, as that's what Conduit Gem is for, basically. And one second, I'm going to turn off the... All right, so Conduit Gem. Conduit Gem is very good. Like I said, if you want early pressure and those guardians that do a lot of damage, like your Bake, although Bake wouldn't be really good, that's not a good example. Cthulhu, Cerberus, those gods that can really get them off. Even on gods like Geb, who have consistent abilities that you can get them off on with Conduit Gem, that is the passive. Because if you don't know, Conduit has been recently buffed to where now it's so much easier to get your stacks online. You get up to 40 true damage, which is very good, and it stacks a lot easier. So Conduit Gem I've been seeing a lot more of. I'm lagging again. Stop it, game. Or OBS. And then obviously you still have your Sands of Time. I'm actually just gonna stop this because I got my goddamn video, man. Sands of Time. Sands of Time is still very good, as it gives you early game pressure and everything. It obviously goes into that alternate timeline. So if you don't want Conduit Gem and you want to have more survivability and more stats, then I would go Sands of Time. But on your gods that are really benefit off of damage, like Cthulhu and Cerberus, for example, Conduit Gem is very good there as well. Other than that, you know, other items that I really always want to see on a Guardian is Gauntlet of Thebes / Prophetic Cloak, for those gods that can get Prophetic Cloak up easier, like a Cthulhu, for example, would be very good with Prophetic. I want to see that on like almost all of your builds, because it's just a staple for all of your Guardians. All right, switch over to Ares, because I don't know what's happening with my PC. It's dying. Anyways, Gauntlet of Thebes, like I said, I always want to see this on a majority of like all of your Guardians. It's super good. It gives you a best of both worlds with its protections, and it also gives you a passive is very good for it. This isn't in any order, but this is what these are the items that I always want to see. I want to always see Relic Dagger as well. I think Relic Dagger is just too good right now. With its passive, Eldritch Dagger, giving you even more protections. You're always, I mean, Horrific Emblem, Sunder are very good in the meta, so you can proc Eldritch Dagger all the time. So I always want to see these like core items, basically. I always want to see these items somewhere in your build in general. So we're actually just going to go ahead and go into this build. Like I said, you can either go Conduit or Sands, depending on which one you want. Let's just go Sands for now. Let's go ahead and go into a Gauntlet. And then this slot can kind of be so many items, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and put them at the bottom, because there are so many. We're actually just going to, let's just do that. So, like I said, Voidstone, Damaru, always going to be good to go for that slot if you want to have more, be more team oriented, giving your team more damage with either Void Shield, because you're reducing their protections, physical protections or magical protections with Damaru. That's always very good to go into if you would like. Glad Shield can be on certain gods that are very good with it, like Kabrakan would be kind of good with it. Bacchus is really good with it. Cthulhu, obviously very good with it. So you can obviously go that as well if you want to. It gives you a little bit of cooldown as well. And then obviously, like I was talking about earlier, Talisman. Talisman has been in the meta a lot. Actually, we're going to use this because your second slot is where you want to get. There's so many items you can go here. Talisman, we can just put Talisman here because I love Talisman so much. That or Shoguns. It really depends on what your other tank goes. You can pick up Shoguns or Talisman for depending on which you want to pick up more of. So you can pick up Talisman for yourself if you like, or Shoguns depending on, you know, what's going on, what's on your team comp. But you kind of want either or of these. But going into other items, Shoguns is very good. Pridwin obviously is a very good item as well. If you really wanted to, you could go Breastplate of Valor too. Breastplate of Valor is just always good too because of your upgraded glyphs and everything. It's very similar to Warrior, but you have a little bit more options, I think, than your Warriors within this specific slot. And those are kind of like your items, your basic items here for your Guardians. We're actually gonna go ahead and get rid of Conduit Gem, put Sands up here, and then Conduit. Actually, we'll put Conduit at the bottom as well because I want to make sure we get the top part of it good to go. And then obviously, like I said, I want Eldritch Dagger. Eldritch Dagger is very good after your first item after Gauntlet of Thebes. Eldritch Dagger is very good in this slot. Gives you cooldown. Like I said earlier, with Relic Dagger is very good. And then I like Spirit Robe. Spirit Robe is obviously just a very generally good item. You can honestly go Mantle either here too, either or. And then last item can be a variation of things. It could be, you know, E-Staff. Ethereal Staff is very good, especially on like a god like Cthulhu. You can even go Stone of Binding. Stone of Binding is very good as well. Trying to, you know, if you have a lot of CC, for example, like if you use Cabrakan, for example, Cabrakan's very good with Stone of Binding. So you can go into either Ethereal Staff or Stone of Binding or something like that. You can even go into a Soul Reaver. I'm not going to put it here, but you can go into Soul Reaver and stuff like that. But this is, you know, your general build. Really, the only thing that's changed is your Talisman of Energy and your Conduit Gem. And then obviously you have your other items that you can go here as well. A lot of the items that I thought were going to be in meta, like Heartward Amulet, which is still a very good item. It's not as good as all these other items that give you those stats that you're more. I mean, not that Heartward isn't team oriented, Jesus, but Void Shield and Damaru, I think, just have more impact on the game, for example. So why would you ever build that when you can just go Damaru or Shoguns or Talisman for your hunters and your AA warriors? So this is basically your Guardian build. You do have a lot of options for cooldown. You get all your stats and stuff like that. So that's going to be your general Guardian. Actually, wait, sorry, I almost forgot one item. Mystical Mail. Mystical Mail on gods like your Cthulhu and your Cerberus is very good as well, specifically with your Cerberus. Going Cerberus and Damaru is tech as hell. I'm telling you, Mystical and Damaru on Cerberus goes so fucking hard. You think you do damage on Cerberus right now, you're gonna do even more with that. So Mystical Mail is another underrated item that I like to go on. You can also go it on Ares as well, with his passive unintentionally with this. So that is gonna be your Guardian build. All right, and then we have our hunters. So there's a lot of changes that have been, I don't know why Silver Branch is here. That's cool. Anyways, that's an item that we're gonna eventually talk about, but there have been a decent amount of changes to the hunter build. Not a lot of like specific items that have changed, like they're like the items itself, but the way in which we build hunters have changed a little bit. With double tank being in the meta, a lot of your other builds like crit, other items that don't have early game prot shred, that's kind of been changing, and now you're gonna see it's not a new build specifically. This build has always been here, but it's just been more proliferated because of the double tank meta that we're in. So let's just go ahead and get into this build. We're gonna go into a Cal. I still think Cal is your best go-to starter. I think Leader's Cal is your best bet here. And I remember ragging on this item before, and this was during a meta where we had a mage. It was like a traditional team comp, mage, hunter, guardian, and this didn't have as much of an effect as it does now because, again, the passive gives you increased power, but it gives you stacks for more power as well. And I didn't think it was all that great, specifically because you're not going to be giving that much power to your mages anyways with it. And who knows, I could have been a little bit wrong on that, but I think Leader's Cal for right now is really good. The power that you get is going to be very good, and it doesn't it reduces stacks based on how many enemies are close, which are always going to be near enemies in Joust. So that was kind of my thought process, but it's still very good. So you really want to go into Leader's Cal. You can still go on the other one. It's not as great, but Leader's Cal also gives you health and stuff, making you tankier and shit like that. So Leader's Cal we're going to go into. The other build I was talking about, you really go into, or before you would go into Aussie, and it's still, I guess, technically viable, but it does get your early game, or it does stop your early game from what you want to be doing now. And the first item that we're going to talk about is Dominance. Like I said, we've seen this first item slot for Dominance before in previous metas, ever since like the Dominance changes where it gives you attack speed and stuff like that, because it didn't always give you that. It used to be more of like a it wasn't really a hunter item per se, but now it really is because of the attack speed. So Dominance here is specifically for your double tank team comps, like I said earlier, with your warrior, guardian, and hunter, or any variation with double tank. Dominance is going to be very good, as it does give you prot shred in its basic attacks, giving you an additional 20% physical penetration. And obviously, in order to kill tanks, you need penetration, percent pen specifically. So Dominance early is going to be very good, and also gives you MP5. You know, gods like Hou Yi or X-Ball is actually going to be benefit even more out of this because of the MP5, because they do use a lot of mana, so that'll always be nice. Similarly to what I said earlier, or just now actually, with Dominance, Xe is there as well to prot shred too. And you can go Envenom Xe, or you can go Ferocious Xe. It just really depends on what you're really wanting. If they don't have a lot of shields or any anti-heal, or any healing, I mean, you don't really need anti-heal, then you can go the Ferocious Executioner. And obviously if they do, then you go Envenomed. And then after that, you can go into a Kins. I don't necessarily like the build. I know that it's very good. I just don't like building Kins that early because it does stack later into the game traditionally, and it's very expensive. But with the double tank meta, you want to make sure you're able to shred them as early as possible. And so going, you know, percent pen in both of these item slots and then going into a Kins is going to be your best way to do that. Yeah, and as you can see, Aussie isn't even in this build yet. You can still go Aussie, like I said, but we'll continue on. We'll talk about that in a second here. Oboe, very good in the meta as well, giving you a lot of attack speed and extra yellow numbers with your Kins as well. So you're doing even more damage. So Oboe, I mean, Oboe's super good. It's kind of always been that way, except for like a period where they nerfed it. But Oboe, very good right now. And then last but not least, we have Titan's Bane. We've seen this item as well, I think last season. Titan's Bane, last item. They recently buffed it, so it's a lot better. And, you know, having 40% pen in Titan's Bane is obviously very good, with like in a single ability. So it's also very good to kill tanks as well. If you build like an Anhur, I mean, Anhur is going to be slicing you up. So late game, this build fucks. It kills your tank super easy, and it still, you know, has everything to kill your squishies, even though it's not really what you are building this for. But this would be your build here. Another item that I want to talk about is Silver Branch. Silver Branch is very good. If you have a god that has a stim, then Silver Branch is obviously going to be what you're going to want to go. Instead of going like a Titan's Bane, you can go Silver Branch. This does give percent pen as well. Obviously not as much as Titan's Bane, but Silver Branch is very good. And honestly, depending on your team comp and what they build, if you have a team with you, and they build specifically to help you and their team, building, like I said earlier, Talisman and Shoguns can actually help your hunter get those maximum stacks, which Silver Branch does. It gives you even more power. Once you get past the 2.5 threshold, you get max stacks. As you can see, if I go Titan's Bane, I actually don't get max stacks. But if I go Silver Branch, I get not max stacks, max attack speed. And if you have a team to help you with Talisman and Shoguns, let's say you build both of those, then you can get up to upwards of 42% extra attack speed, which is very good for your Silver Branch, even if you don't have a stim in your kit. And if you do have a stim in your kit, then you always go Silver Branch. So gods like Izanami, I can't think of any. I mean, I guess Apollo is one of them, but you don't want to do that on Apollo. Hachiman is very good with his 2. He gets overstacked. That Ishtar. So other gods like this, you would want to go Silver Branch. And then specifically with this, you can honestly go Titan's Bane if you want into Oboe, or you could like go Oboe into Titan's Bane. You can go Oboe into Silver Branch, or if you're feeling frisky, you can go into Titan's Bane into Silver Branch. Although I don't know if I really like this that much. You'd have to really specifically have your team with Talisman and Shoguns, or you have to have a stim for this build to work. But generally speaking, Oboe into Titan's Bane or Oboe into Silver Branch is very good. Like I said earlier, Aussie isn't really good right now, or it's good. Don't get me wrong. It's a good item. It's just you're delaying building it early, like you usually do. You're delaying it with the lifesteal changes to where you're only hitting gods, and that's getting most of your value out of it, instead of like minions and buff cans where you would get way more. It's just not as good. So you can build Aussie early game if you would like, and I actually like that too. But there's also been seeing, and it makes sense, Aussie has also been being bought later into the build. And you're thinking like, why would I build that later in the build? It's like kind of, I don't know, it feels weird to do that. And I feel that too, but Aussie into like Oboe, for example, is super good as well. Aussie into Titan's Bane is okay. But Aussie into Oboe is very good. You can honestly go into Aussie Silver Branch, but I do like the Aussie Oboe. If you want to get a little more attack speed, I'm sorry, lifesteal, you can go Aussie, and that specifically, I wrote it down here to make sure, to make sure I didn't. So you build Aussie later in the build, and it's good because the lifesteal will be a lot better later in the game, because you'll be doing damage and it'll allow you to get other items online to have more early damage and pressure. But you know, like for me, I just would forego it. That's the only thing that this build kind of sucks with. But yeah, like I said, you get more lifesteal the later in the game, so it's gonna have more of an effect then. It just means that, you know, earlier in the game you're not gonna have a lot of sustain. So again, Aussie is still very good here. So you can still build Aussie early in the build or later in the build. Preferably later in the build is what you want to go. So something like this. I mean, technically you can go last item Aussie, but I wouldn't. I'd probably go 5th item Aussie into Oboe. And then last but not least, I just want to go over this. You can still build Griffin Wing. Griffin Wing is still very good. I think it's a luxury item, but if it works for you, then go ahead. I mean, it gives you a lot of power for it being super cheap, attack speed, MP5. So basically anything you really want in a hunter. So you can build that as well. But again, this does take place of one of these items, which, I mean, you look at these items, there's not a lot of room for this to be in here and do the same amount of impact with this build. Again, you can still buy Griffin Wing, but I don't really like it because there are a lot more impactful items with better passives than Griffin Wing. But you can still build this. But yeah, that's basically your meta update. One build, this is my preferred build, actually, before we go on. This is what I've been building. And it's just the way I play. I like having early sustain. I go Leader's Cowl, Dominance, Aussie, and then I go into either Exy or Kins, depending on my team comp. But usually I'll go into Exy, Kins, and then I'll go into Oboe. And I do like this build a lot. And it actually is pretty good on your hunters that don't really get benefit out of Titan's Bane. But like if you're building on her or something, then you definitely want to build Titan's Bane. And then obviously, you know, I could switch out Oboe for Silver Branch if I wanted to and get the max stacks with someone with a stim, or if I have my team with Shoguns and Talisman. But I do like this build as well. But objectively speaking, this build right here is better. So we're gonna go into a crit build really quick because there is a specific team comp you could use crit in. I would not recommend crit, generally speaking, but we're gonna go into that build right now. And we have our crit build. I already made the crit build here. This is specifically against your team comps that have a double backline. So if you're going up against tank, do not build crit. There's just too much room for error. So if they build spectral armor or something like that, you're kind of just fucked. Although spectral armor isn't that great, having spectral armor against 2 tanks, especially when you can be building other items that will always work against them, like a Exy Kins Dominance, building that all the time, is just better. But against like a double backline, I think going into a little bit of crit is nice, especially when you build it 4th item in. One thing that I have been noticing specifically against your double backline with a single tank is they don't like building special armor because there's no double tank, so you don't have items that you can allow like the warrior to build that you can kind of just mosey on off of. Like if you're building crit, you can just tell your warrior, hey, go buy spectral armor, or vice versa. Whereas if you're the guardian, you only have like a select amount of items and you want to get those items online, and if you have to build spectral armor, it feels even worse. So I have been sneaking in crit against like those team comps. And so this is basically the build. I like to go into Leader's Cowl, Dominance, Aussie, Demon Blade, Boomerang, and then your last item can either be your Oboe, Silver Branch, depending on your team comp, if you have a stim, or Kins, just to do even more damage. I like going into Oboe. It doesn't really work the best with crit because crit's going to be based off of your power, and Oboe doesn't give you any power. But if not, you can go into Silver Branch or Kins, like I said. And then I like Aussie because I like Aussie just because it's me. I like early sustain. But if you don't need any sustain, you can just go into Exy, which will allow you to do even more damage. So if you wanted to go Exy, that would also be better. objectively does more damage if you build XC, but I do like Aussie for the sustain for myself. But any form of these items, you really want your Dominance, Demon Blade, Leader's Cow, Bladed Boomerang, and then you can go with these 3 items depending on which one you would like. And then interchanging Aussie and XC if you want one more over than the other. But that is your crit build for your hunters. And actually, your hunter build in general, we're going to go move on to mages. All right, now we have our mages. Mages have been seeing overhaul. They haven't been doing the best in the meta, and that goes just for all game modes, just Smite in general. Mages, ever since they got the passive change to where they don't just get power, they've been seeing a decrease in playability, viability, and stuff like that. Most of the team comps you'll see actually don't even include a mage. So, but recently they've been making decent changes, giving more power to items, and then also basically just giving power to mages with conduit gem as well. So that I think now, the passive is a lot easier to get online. I don't think that is what it is. Conduit, I'm jumbling up there's so many things I want to talk about. So conduit gem and items have been buffed basically to kind of compensate the passive. So certain items like soul gem, doom orb, deso, Rod of Tahuti, these items have a little bit of increase in power, and so it should kind of compensate for the lack of the passive for mages. And then conduit gem just is now really fucking good. It's just so good. So we're gonna go ahead and go in here. Sands of Time is still good. I'm lagging again. We're gonna we'll try it now. Okay, I'm getting out of this. Sorry, boys. Sands of Time is still very good. But I'd still like Conduit Gem better. Conduit Gem, like I said, the passive gets online sooner. I mean, very good, obviously, and it gives you it gives you true damage. One thing that Conduit does suck with. Oops, I forgot to hold on. I gotta change this. This is supposed to say mages. There we go. One thing that does suck about building Conduit is you have to build Chronos, or you have to build items that have all cooldown, which, isn't the best thing in the world. Conduit can kind of give you the 20% cooldown. You can kind of go off of that and build other items. And Conduit does give you meh kind of stats. It gives you 70 power, and it's really just for the cooldown. A little MP5, but it's really just for the cooldown. So that's kind of what you have to build with Conduit. I still think Sands is still very good. Sands is still very good. You can go into alternate timeline as well. But with how mages are being played, you do want that early game pressure. You don't want it to get to late game. And if it does, then obviously alternate timeline is probably going to be better majority of the time. But even still, you can still get destroyed with having alternate timeline. But still, either one of these are good. I've been edging on the Conduit. I think Conduit is just better just because of its passive. And the way the upgraded item, or the way they buff these items interact with Conduit, I think is still very good as well. Don't sleep on the true damage on the Conduit. 40, just flat out 40 extra damage every, 10 seconds is very good. So one thing they also changed with Spirit Desolation is it's tier 2. So tier 2 now gives 5 flat pen, which is actually now we're in a Spirit Desolation rush. And that's your first item you want to build. So Conduit Gem into Spirit of Desolation is very good. Flat Pen for your for just early game damage, because a lot of tanks aren't going to have a lot of defense online. So Spirit Deso will give you a lot of early pressures on top of Conduit Gem. Deso gives you a little bit of cooldown as well. And then we're going to go into another item, next item, which is Chronos Pendant. This will allow you, because Conduit Gem doesn't give you any cooldown, you do want to have items that give you a decent amount of cooldown. So Conduit Gem, Spirit Deso into Chronos Pendant just for its passive, basically. We're going to go put Sands of Time down here, because that's not the meta build right now. And then this slot can be either or. Soul Gem, or in my opinion, I like Staff of Mirrodin. I like Staff of Mirrodin better on gods that proc it. So Persephone procs Staff of Mirrodin perfectly. So you always want to go Staff of Mirrodin instead of like a Soul Gem. But if you're going up, let's say you're a Morgan Le Fay. Morgan Le Fay doesn't have the best proc with Staff of Mirrodin, but she does spam out abilities. So Soul Gem would also be good here too. Maxes out your cooldown. And even though that you don't have a lot of percent pen, the amount of cooldown and damage you're doing with true damage, everything else should somewhat compensate that. We'll go over more of a more of a tank build to kill tanks. But for specifically for Persephone, for example, Staff of Mirrodin is going to give you that passive, giving you even more damage, cooldown, and it has percent pen, which is nice. And then we're going to go into a Soul Reaver. Come on. Soul Reaver is still very good even against your squishies, because it just does so much damage as well. Your Conduit proc, your Soul Reaver proc, and, you know, if you're able to get to a squishy, you just destroy them. Soul Reaver, and then last item, I like going into Ob Shard. Ob Shard is your last item. And with this build, this specific build, you min-max kind of like all your stats. You have percent, or not like min-max completely, but it's still very good. You have 40% cooldown. You have Soul Reaver just to do even more damage, and then Ob Shard, which gives you 40% on each ability. Now it's not every time you use it, so you could even get 60% cooldown. With this build, you actually have 50% pen with this, not cooldown. So this kind of min-maxes a lot of your build, and you would go into actually no, it's not. Let's get rid of Conduit Gem. We know Conduit Gem. Let's go into Gem of Focus. This would be the upgraded one that you would go into, because this gives you percent damage increase, movement speed, and everything you would like. And this is basically, let me put this in order so you guys can have like a screenshot or whatever. And this is basically your mage build right here. This is your meta build for that. If you have anti-heal that you need, you would obviously go Divine Rune. And then Rod of Tahuti is another item that I like. Not the best, because it is pretty expensive. And I'd rather just have Ob Shard than Rod of Tahuti. But these are still other items that are very good as well. For tanks though, so this is just like a general build. It doesn't, and obviously you would go Soul Gem instead of Mirrodin. Not the greatest against tanks. So another build that I like to go, I'm going to clear this in a second, so beware. One build that I like to go against tanks actually is basically the same exact thing, which is, let's just do Gem of Focus. Gem of Focus, Deso, Chronos. And then actually, I don't like going into Soul Gem or Mirrodin. I mean, if you can go into Mirrodin, then you would go into Mirrodin and build that, and that'd be your other tank build. I like building Ob Shard here quicker if you really want to go up against those tanks. Get Ob online as soon as possible, Soul Reaver, and then you would go into a Rod of Tahuti. That would also be a very good build here as well. It's just a little bit more expensive and doesn't do what the other build does cheaper, even with the Soul Gem, for example. But if you don't want Soul Gem, you're like, fuck it, I don't want Soul Gem, it's just not going to make my late game, and you know, it's not going to be as great, then you can just go Obsidian Shard, get that percent pen online sooner, Soul Reaver, and then Rod of Tahuti would be good. Or, you know, if you really want to, you can get Mirrodin, Ob, and then Soul Reaver, like the other build that I showed earlier. This one is just a way to compensate for that Soul Gem. If you don't want Soul Gem in it, you can just go this build as well. And then that's basically it. Very cookie cutter. You still have your tablet build that's very good on certain gods, and that's basically it. We're gonna go actually into let's go to Baron, because there is a spicy build that I want to go over. So if you haven't seen, Baubles has been buffed, so meaning that this passive used to decrease, I think, healing and damage, so it was kind of bad, but Baubles does give you 50% cooldown, which means you can spam out your abilities on certain gods that can take advantage of it. You can build this on Guardians. It works on Guardians too. You know, like Yamoja would be a good one. Those gods that throw out a lot of abilities, but specifically on certain mages like Baron. Baron with Baubles is super fucking good. Eset is good with it, Hell and Aphrodite, so this build can actually work for what I'm about to go into, can work for them as well. I'm actually just going to go ahead and preset it. Alright, so this is the build. So as you can see, soak it all in. Soak in its glory. It's so good. Specifically on gods like Baron, who have a lot of utility, can spam out their abilities, can be built semi-tank or just be a pure tank. You can actually build Baron very tanky if you didn't know. And with this build, you can actually use him as your tank. So if you have your Guardian, your original Guardian, AA Warrior, and Hunter, you can actually interchange your Guardian with Baron, for example, and that would be very good. And especially with Baubles, you now do so much shit with this. So obviously you go into alternate timeline, you get Gauntlet, and then Breastplate of Determination gives you everything that you need for this build. It gives you the cooldown. It's passive of determination, gives you even more protections. So that's very good as well. You really want to focus all of your items on cooldown with this build, because you need to get to 50% cooldown. And to be clear, Sphinx's Baubles gives you 10% cooldown as well. So really all you need is max cooldown, and then you put in a Sphinx Baubles and you'll get that 50%, as you can go up to 40 to 50. And it's very good. You go into Eldritch Dagger after this. Dagger is obviously very good, gives you everything you want: health, cooldown, CCR, movement speed, and then obviously gives you 50% off of your relics and a glyph that allows you to get more protection, so you'll be even more tanky. And you have a decent amount of power with this build. Obviously this isn't the right protections, this isn't stacked. And even if you did want to go more protections, like this is the build that I would normally go, because it does do a, you're not the tankiest in the world, but you also do a decent amount of damage as well. You do about 180. So you want that utility and spamming out abilities. But I have these items down here for any extra that you want to build instead. So instead of breastplate, you can go into Chronos if you wanted to. So that would be very good as well. Prophetic, if you have a god that can stack prophetic really well. Baron's not the greatest. Afro isn't the greatest either, but Hell is pretty good, so you could go prophetic on Hell. Or if you're just a G and you can just get your prophetic stacked that easily, then you can actually go into prophetic first, which switches up the build a lot, which allows you to get Baubles online quicker. This is why I put prophetic here, because if you go alternate timeline, it gives you 10, prophetic gives you 20. You go into breastplate, then you can go into Sphinx's Baubles, and then you already have 50% cooldown, allowing you to spam out abilities a lot sooner. And seeing as Joust is a very quick game mode compared to other game modes like Conquest, this would actually be, you'd get your build online a lot quicker. And then you can go into other items if you want, like a mantle or a spirit robe or a mantle. Even though you overcap, it's still very good. If you didn't want to go overcap, you can go talisman, then go into E-staff, and then you'd be super tanky. You have all the damage, you'd be super tanky, and yeah, that would be a very good build as well. E-staff is there just to give you even more health. It's basically just a tank item. But yeah, there's that. If you didn't want to go Relic Dagger for whatever reason, because I don't know why you wouldn't, because Relic Dagger is so good, you could go into Gauntlet, Breastplate, into Spear Rub, get that cooldown, be even tankier if you wanted to, right out the gate instead of using like a Relic to be tankier. You can do that as well, and this would be a build like that too. But yeah, this has been a build. I'm gonna be doing videos on this as well. But E-Set and Baron are very good abusers of that, as well as Afro, and Hell. There are a couple other Guardians I want to test on, but it's mainly these guys that basically the guys that can spam out abilities, who have a lot of utility, who can kind of go hybrid, because Sphinx's Bauble is not a good item for its stats. It gives you dog shit stats, but it's passive. So if you were to build this on like a damage mage, it kind of sucks because you're not doing as much damage. But it still could work, which is still a fun build. All you would do for like a mage, for example, is build a regular mage build, but just interchange one of those items, like I don't know, like Ob Shard or something, even though it kind of sucks, like I said, because you know it doesn't give any damage, so you're kind of forcing out an item that'd be really good. You can even do this for Deso, for example, if you wanted to get that 50% for your mages, but that would be, you know, kind of cheesy to do as well if you wanted to just spam out abilities like on a Morgan Le Fay, for example. But specifically, I think this is really, really good on your Barons and your E-sets, and I think those are going to be your top, one of your top mages for this specific reason with Baubles. So this is your Baubles build. All right, now last but not least, we have our Assassins. Not much changed here either, outside of maybe like one item, which is going to be Soul Eater, which is going to be pretty decent on some gods like Set or even Camazotz now. Bastet being really good with it. But there's basically only two builds you do here. You do the hybrid build with like a Gauntlet of Thebes and rest damage like we always do, or we go the straight tank build with like Neja, Fenrir, Ravana, Thor sometimes can do that as well. Just like certain items like Talisman will be put in there for a little bit extra things here. So actually I'm going to preset this. All right, here is the build. Like I said, you still do the Gauntlet route, go that into Jotuns, Hydras, Serrated, Heartseeker, and that basically is like a cookie cutter build that's always been like that. Every time I put on this webcam, man, I just need to stop it. Sorry, boys, for the webcam. I thought it was gonna be better. I need to get a better computer. But anyways, this is what you have. So basically your obvious stuff. You have these items down below for anything you'd like to trade for any of these items. This is just a general build that you can go, like Camazotz is really good with this, but if you want to build Bastet, you can, for example, you could go into, instead of going into Gauntlet because she can get away with not going any defense. You can go into Soul Eater, Jotuns, Hydra, Serrated, and Heartseeker, as Soul Eater has gotten a buff to its damage and its passive and its base form. I'm sorry, in its stacked version and its base form. I think it gives you 10 total more power. So you can go that for like Bastet, for example. And then for like set, you could obviously go into Soul Eater as well. Soul Eater, Jotuns, Serrated, or Heartseeker, for example. That would be pretty good as well. But you know, there's other items, you know, for if there's any anti-heal, I would suggest watching my rating builds for Camazotz, my recent one, as that goes over how you would fit in Brawler's beat stick, because it is actually kind of tricky to do. Because you would really interchange it with Jotuns, and it's kind of hard to do with this build because you won't get a lot of cooldown if you do that. You only have 10% cooldown. So Brawlers for any anti-heal. Titan's Bane, if you want to really kill those tanks, you'd probably interchange it for your Heartseeker or Serrated. Crusher would be good on gods like Daji, for example. They give like auto attack. What is it called? Auto attack cancels. Transcendence would be very good as well. You'd go like, you know, if you wanted to go Gauntlet and then Trans, because Trans has recently, you know, with the stacking changes, it makes it to where Trans is actually better stacked later. So you could go Trans on certain gods that get benefit out of that. For like, you know, like a Thor, for example, would be good with the Trans. And then Glad Shield would be another item that would be pretty solid if you just want to be like a tiny bit tankier, while also, you know, being able to do a bunch of damage with his passive, and a little bit of cooldown. So that would be your, you know, hybrid-esque, having a little bit of tank, so you can go straight damage, be a little bit tanky not to die, but also, you know, deal so much damage. And that would be your regular build that hasn't really changed much. All right, on to our tank build. This one doesn't really change much either. It really depends on god. Like, so for example, Fenrir really gets good off Serrated Edge, but, you know, mind that everything's basically the same. Only thing that's changed really is your magical defense. Instead of going like Genji's, which I put down here because it's still pretty good, you would go Talisman, as most likely if you're going to be playing a tank assassin, you're exchanging that for like a warrior or even a guardian. So one of you has to pick up either Shoguns or Talisman, which actually I'll just go ahead and put Shoguns here just in case. You know, if they wanted to go Talisman instead, you could go Shoguns here for your hunter. Again, if you don't have a hunter, I wouldn't suggest Shoguns. I still think Talisman of Energy is still going to be there even if you don't have a hunter, just because of, you know, everything else it gives as well. So Talisman's super good still. And then Pridwin for cooldown. I mean, Pridwin's super good on Fenrir. It's super good on Neja. Neja would go Glorious Pridwin instead of Reverent, for example. But, you know, Pridwin for that is really good too. Serrated specifically for Fenrir, and then Heartseeker, you know, you do so much with Heartseeker. This is your tank-esque build. You're still technically hybrid because you still have damage here, but it's definitely tankier than the other build. And then obviously you have Breastplate. If you don't want to go Pridwin, you don't think Pridwin goes well with the god you have, for example, you can go Breastplate of Valor and get that 20% cooldown. It allows you to do that. You can do that with Jotuns as well. Late game or early game Jotuns will go a long way as well. I just said that twice. Nice. Jotuns though. Jotuns is pretty good. You can go there as a substitute as well. Genji's is a selfish item, but is very good for your assassins. Gives you MP5, never run out of mana. Gives you that cooldown as well. Could cap it out if you put it here too, which is normally what I would do, but Talisman is so good right now. Spirit Robe as well. I mean, it just gives you everything that you need. Rune Breaking or Rune Forge Hammer is specifically good on those gods that can proc it well. So Fenrir would be pretty good if you can hit his one decently. I wouldn't suggest it on Fenrir as opposed to some of these other items that are just better. But for a Neja, Rune Forge Hammer would be very good on him. And that's there for those gods as well, because you can build that on those assassins too. Rune Breaking is very good on Thor as well. Yeah, Thor Rune Breaking is disgusting. You 2-1 and you like half hit the squishy. And then Shoguns, like I said earlier. So nothing really much changed with the assassins either. It's just certain other items that are sort of being in the meta a little bit more, like Talisman has made a little bit of a rise. So that's basically all of your builds, I believe. We went over assassins, warrior. Can I put my face here now, or is it gonna freak out? Look at my cat. See that guy? Look at that guy. Look at him. Anyways, we got we did all of the classes. Jesus, I can't think. So if I were to put like an end to this, like which classes had the most impact, it would be your mages and your hunters, specifically with those builds, and then a little bit of your guardians. Your guardians have with talisman specifically, and guardians can go that Baubles build. So really it's your mage, hunters, and your guardians. The warrior build as well, and the assassin build, you have a talisman, but basically those builds are staying the same, especially with the AA builds. Not much really can change with AA, auto attack based, you know, gods for warriors. But yeah, that's basically all the builds. If you have any suggestions or you think I may have missed something, let me know in the comment section down below. Again, join the Discord if you haven't already. Like I say every single time, if you want to talk to me, ask me questions specifically, it's a lot easier to contact me on Discord. A lot of people in the Discord asking for games, so you can queue up with them, and it's just a fun place to, you know, shoot the shit. So join the Discord down below. Obviously I'm going to be doing these more in the future. Probably make one on like 11.5, 11.6, stuff like that. I'm going to make a tier list. I got a lot of things that I want to get to that I haven't gotten to recently, so expect these to be more pumped out than usual, I suppose, because I only pumped 2 of these out. But yeah, with the new changes and stuff like that, I felt like I needed to. So again, if you have any questions or concerns or whatever, ask me in the comment section down below and I will address them. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. But that is everything that I have for you. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching.